there. This is Aria Craig, your empowerment and leadership strategist for ambitious moms, particularly single, divorced, and blended moms who are ready to move into that next stage of success, leadership, and elevation in their personal and professional lives. It is 7 o'clock p.m. Thursday, which means that it is time for Ask Aria, our Ask Aria segment. So last week, I spoke about how I was a guest on a radio show, and I talked about having those difficult conversations with your kids about sex, drugs, and bullying. Sex meaning consensual and non-consensual. And I talked about my experience with sexual abuse. So I had a Me Too moment also, a Me Too experience in my life. And I wanted to share that in hopes to heal, bring healing to someone who has experienced it themselves, and how to have those conversations with your kids, different suggestions and tips that you can provide in your family, and what to look for if your child is starting to act a little bit strange or different, and having that conversation to ask those questions if they've been touched inappropriately. So this week I'm going to talk about bullying. And I know that these are tough conversations, but this is what the world is experiencing, is what we've been experiencing. It's just that now it's more prevalent because we have social media. That's pretty much the tool that's being used to bring it to the forefront. So just to give you a little bit experience about my bullying situation. I was bullied from sixth grade up to about ninth grade, freshman year in high school. It was more, I have to say, it was more aggressive. I experienced it more in the sixth grade. So what we did when I was younger, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have these platforms to express ourselves and show other people what's going on in classes and in schools. What I would do, and what kids who my age would do if they were bullied, is they would go home and they would tell their parents. And as I told you before, my dad wasn't in the home, which I think that if he was, well, not really in the home because my mom was a single parent, but even if he was actively engaged and if he was actively involved in my life, that would have made a lot of difference in terms of how the situation was handled. But with my mom, they come from a generation of where they'll just tell you to ignore it and they'll go away, or just sit there and just, or laugh with them. If you laugh with them, maybe they'll stop, they'll laugh with you, and then they see that you're laughing at it also, then they'll stop bullying you or stop teasing you and making fun of you. And I've even had it to where somebody has even said, well, that little boy likes you, that's why he's talking about you. And it's like, no, those are not responses, those are not appropriate responses to a child who's fearing every day and having to build up the courage to go into a classroom to face these kids daily about being humiliated in front of other students. So for me, it was more or less, well, what happened was, when I would go into the classroom, and there was normally one person who would set it off with the name calling and the teasing, and then you had a couple of other ones that would join him in there, but it took him to start it. He always had to start it, kick it off. And for me, when I was younger, I had an overbite. I had a very obvious overbite with a gap in between my two front teeth. I like a really big gap in between my two front teeth. And I used to wear my hair in braids. So back then, girls got perms. We all got perms, and we would try to mimic the latest hairstyles. But I didn't have a perm. I didn't get my perm until like a week before 8th grade graduation. So I would wear my hair natural in braids to school, which was not the trend. It wasn't something that we did back then. So I would get teased on my hair, and I always got teased with my overbite, which was probably the most impactful in terms of the hurt that I experienced, because I could always get a perm, and I came from a very poor family, so I could always get a perm. My mom could have got me a perm later on, which she did, but getting braces, expensive, very expensive, and that didn't happen until my senior year in high school. I think the summer between junior and senior year in high school. So what I would do, oh, sorry, forgot to turn it on mute. But what I would do is I would come into school every single day hoping and praying that this day they wouldn't say anything. Like, they wouldn't ride me today. They wouldn't talk about me. But I was always like their muse. I was like always the one that they would pick on because they knew I was an easy target because I wouldn't say anything. It's hard to kind of laugh when somebody is riding in on you every day and all your classmates are laughing at them talking about you. So, and then you had a couple of other guys, which, well, I'll get into that later. I was going to say something ironic. But a couple of the other little boys would join in with him, but it's like they needed him to influence the situation to kickstart it. Like, they couldn't have a mind of their own to do it because it's almost like they knew it was wrong, so they didn't do it themselves. They would wait until he started in. So I would actually sit in class, and when you're in 6th grade, you're going to different subjects, different classes, because each class was a different subject. I would actually come into this class and I would sit there and you could see me trembling. I would be physically trembling, sometimes crying, very uncomfortable, heart beating, sweating. I would be sweating so bad to where you could see the white deodorant marks running down my arms. And it got so bad that I was getting stressed out to where I started breaking out in rashes. And when I say I was breaking out in rashes, I'm not talking about just on my arms and on my neck. I actually broke out in a rash in a private area. So I was actually uncomfortable going to school wearing underwear because I was always itchy and tense after having that experience. My mom had to take me to the doctor. They told my mom to get a different detergent because maybe she's allergic to the soap powder detergent that you're using for your laundry. She couldn't figure out what was going on, why I was breaking out in these rashes. And I would just itch and claw myself raw because I would just be so itchy and from the stress. My body was reacting to the stress of going in that class and constantly being subjected to being bullied. And this is the stuff that people didn't know. Like, people in my classroom, my classmates, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. My classmates would come into the classroom and they would just laugh along with them. And then, once they were done, they were done. And then they would go on about their way or do their assignment or whatever. I had to live with everything else that I had to experience after the fact. So after a while, because when I talked to my mom about it, about the actual bullying, after a while I got the same response that parents at that time gave their children. It was, leave them alone, not leave them alone, just ignore them and they'll go away. And that took a long time before that happened. Like, eventually that happened, but it took a long time before it got to that part. So ironically, now a couple of them are my Facebook friends. I don't even know if they realized how bad that impacted my life from a psychological perspective, more so my self-confidence. My self-confidence was shot for a while. It wasn't until I got the braces where I felt important and where I felt beautiful and actually started getting attention. But that really had a strong impact, and that's something I'm never going to forget. I can forgive, which I have forgiven. I can forgive them, but I'm never going to forget that experience. And also, which was ironic, years later, after graduation, we were adults, my early 20s, my mom, my sister, and I moved into a house not too far from my grandparents. And across the street, and we used to live with my grandparents. That's why I made that comment. We used to live with my grandparents. But across the street, our neighbors was actually one of her classmates that she went to school with. And what we did, her and my neighbor used to get together and talk about not just old times in school and everything like that, but they would talk about having a block party. Well, just by coincidence, the first time we had a block party, the main culprit was there at the block party. And come to find out, he was the nephew of my neighbor. And we're sitting there talking, and the man is actually standing there flirting with me and did not even remember that he used to go in on me all the time when I was 10 years old in the 6th grade. And even saying that, I write about this experience in my book, The Single Mother Diaries. And there's a section in there that talks about sex, drugs, and bullying. And I talk about how even back then I had thoughts of committing suicide because it was so painful. It was so traumatic going in every single day and being the target of people talking about you and just writing you. It wasn't even just one comment here or there, just like roasting on you to where the class would laugh and you just felt little. You felt helpless. You felt small and you didn't have support. So, what I'm here to tell you from that experience is if you have a child, because nowadays it's different. The way that kids are responding to it is different. The way that kids are handling bullying, the way that the administration is handling bullying is different. My mom didn't tell me to tell my teachers or to tell the principal. My mom didn't even have the conversation with them. Now that I am a mother myself, even though my son is 18 and he's a senior in high school, I always checked in with him. From my personal experiences, I learned to do things different. I checked in with him to see if he was okay. I started to, have those conversations. Like if you're ever bullied, this is what you do. And that would be, and I also would like kind of look out for certain signs. So certain signs would be if they're withdrawn, if your child is withdrawn, if he or she doesn't, I talked about this in the last, just briefly at the last Ask Aria session. So go back and take a look at that one because that had good information about sexual abuse also. But if your child is scared to get on the bus, doesn't want to go to school, they're faking being sick, if you notice that their grades are dropping, if you notice that they're looking, their skin is more pale, they're not engaged as they used to be, they're very quiet into themselves, that they may or may not be, I'm not going to diagnose, but it may be that they're going through depression. So you want to start asking the questions like, hey, what's going on? You're not your normal self. Just talk to me. What's going on? Something going on with school? Is someone bothering you? I need to know so that I can do something about it. So if they have the trust in you at that moment, because some of them are too scared to talk and they don't want you to do it in front of them. Like if you go and confront the child or the child's parent, they don't want to be there while you're doing it because that's going to make it even more awkward for them when you are not there and they have to go and face this child again without your support and your presence and your protection. So and that's probably going to make things worse. It may or may not. I don't know. But you want to first start off with the conversation. Let them know that their feelings are valid. What they are feeling is very important to you. And you want to make sure that they're not feeling that again. So go to tell them that if it happens again, talk to the teacher. Because you always want them to stand up for themselves also. But some kids are still not at that point to where they encourage conflict or they encourage being a person that we're gonna, they're gonna do something about it, or they're going to, snap at them or tell them to leave them alone. They're not going, some kids are just not that way. That actually would be a good idea to let them know to stop picking on them so they're not going to feel like they're an easy target, because a lot of kids pick on the weak, and some kids actually that are bullying don't even know that they're bullying. So you want them to make sure that they stand up for themselves, but at the same time, go and tell the teacher. Let the teacher know that this person has been picking on you, and you want them to tell the principal, the dean, or whoever it is that's in charge with the administration at that school for your student. Let them know what's going on. Then tell them if it happens again, let you know, and let you know what the response was from the school. Like, what did your teacher do? How did your teacher respond? Did the principal respond? Did the principal do anything with this child? Because it may be to where if it continues and gets worse, asking them to not just to separate them from the classes, that's not going to work, because kids text each other. I was going to say we used to pass notes. They don't do that anymore. They text each other, and kids laughing and things of that sort. They put stuff on Snapchat, and they humiliate people even worse when they do that, because now it's not just the person that got the message, it's everybody in their network on that particular platform that got the message. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to get a piece of tissue because I'm telling you I got emotional and my nose is getting there. So excuse me. But what you want to do is also, in addition to that, in asking them whether or not the administration did anything, tell them to separate, put you in a different class. Like if your student needs to, I shouldn't say you in a different class, if your child, put your child in a different class. If your child can be in a class to where they're not seeing the other student, not even in passing periods, going from class to class, they don't have to see them in lunch, that would be great. Or better yet, remove the other student, have the other student move, because it shouldn't be to where your child has to move if the other child is the problem. And if things worse comes to worse, then you may want to consider, of course, writing letters. Make sure you document everything. This is what's been going on. This is what my child said. This is what my child brought to your attention, and this is what the response was. You want to make sure you document everything, and then go above them to a higher administration. I don't know if it's like the school board or whatever the board is that is over that particular district, to let them know, look, this is what's going on. Worst comes to worst, you may need to consider moving your child to a different school, pulling your child out of that school and taking them to another school. Because at the end of the day, if they're not doing anything, do you really want your child to be at this school? You really don't want, if the administration is not going to press and make some changes to where this is not happening again with this student or other students, and setting a precedent for this child, then you probably want to go ahead and put your child in a different school. But the one thing you definitely should do, if you don't do anything, well, I'm not going to say don't do anything else. Of course, do those things. But the one thing you want to do in addition to those things is get counseling for your child. Make sure that he or she goes to counseling so that they can understand how they can move forward for something that's this detrimental. Because I'm 41 years old. This happened to me when I was 10, and I'm sitting here telling you to this day and still remember vivid detail what I experienced. And you don't want your child to have to go through life feeling and not healing from this experience. So that's all I have for you today in this segment of Ask Aria. Feel free to type in your comments, your suggestions. DM me, send me an email, call me if you want to set up a strategy session, if you would like for me to come and speak at your event or at your school to talk about bullying, because this is a conversation that needs to be had. I'm here to help you, and I want to support you in that journey. So until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye.